wolf. That was a whole story behind that too, but that was a really interesting experience. But that's kind of stays in my memory, probably going to stay forever. So definitely miss to have a nice, medium-sized dog as to keep company. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those are limited here in the states and where you can have them because when they don't know the mix of the breed, it can have disastrous results. But for the most part, if they get it right, they'll have the uh, wolf's size, but they will have the um, canines. Um, his familiarity with humans and his ability to um, assimilate to and within society. So,
Yeah,
but
absolutely. Yeah, I don't
that,
think I would wolf again.
huh?
I don't think I would want to risk with getting something like a wolf breed or something like that in the United States. Yeah.
I mean, they have breeders here that do it. It's just that it's very regulated on where and where you can have them because some states I don't think you're allowed to have them in certain states.
Well, that and different communities might have their own guidance, right? Like little localities or whatever. I've seen some places that would not, basically have like local rules that you're not allowed to have what they call quote unquote aggressive breeds like pit bulls and things like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
pit bulls, uh, Rottweilers, and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah. Unfortunate. Too bad. But I think most, if there's any problems with dogs, that's probably because of the owner, honestly, not the animal.
Correct. I've been around a lot of pit bulls, and they have not had not one issue. They are very very gentle uh, dogs. It's just that a lot of people mistreat them. They breed them for certain things. They want them extra aggressive because they are known for um, that that ability to clamp down and not let go and stuff like that. So um, a lot of people want that aggressiveness, but then they don't realize that if it's not them, that dog will not really want to be with anyone else, and it creates a problem. But and when they're aggressive and don't assimilate well, if they've never been around other dogs, then it's really really a problem. So, but they're very very gentle dogs, very.
100% agree.
All right, Lena. Good evening.
Hi, Daryl. How are you?
Good. How are you this?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you for saying that about the pit bulls because they are truly gentle dogs, and the issue usually is an owner. I fully agree. Um, the question I wanted to ask is, are we? I haven't been on the space for a while. Do you guys have military updates still daily, or it's a couple of times a week at this
It's
point?
we have had. It's been kind of sporadic.
Mm-hmm.
When we can get a lot of information, uh,
Mm-hmm.
we we get them. We try to get one every night. Language will come on, but it's been like every other night or so with him right now. And then
Yehuda has
uh,
been doing three of
Yehuda,
them.
right? And then
Okay.
Yehuda is trying to get
And
one
we
out.
also have Daryl.
Okay.
We should mention twice a week we have Chuck for a number of hours, and he's going to go through it in quite some detail and wrap it up. We also tie in a number of our military guests in order to do so in a slightly more, shall we say, elaborate fashion. It's nice to have language learner updates for a few minutes and say recant the maps and the likes, but it's also absolutely important and key to have a proper assessment as to what it means, what the data really means. And that's where Yehuda and Chuck and others come in.
Understood. Would you guys have a recent scoop on the situation in Bakhmut and in the Kherson area by any chance?
All right. Hassan, yes, they have been trying to push back Russian artillery by means of actually doing better counter-battery fire, having moved a number of assets. There's no significant movement other than the shaping. Sorry, in this case, it is actually preparation and shaping operations, but there's no movement crossing over. That's, I think, the key aspect. The defense of Kherson is hard. It requires significantly better assets, and it requires a lot more assets against that, say, artillery and rocket artillery threat. And Bakhmut, as I think Daryl and others will be able to tell you as well, whilst the Russians have seized one street on the outskirts of Bakhmut, they are continuing their own self-selected attrition. They know that they can't, because they have lost Izium, they have lost the access to Crimea, they have lost the northern route. They know they have to go through there from their perspective in order to reach their own specific strategic aim or goal, objective, however you want to call it, to take Donetsk Oblast. It's highly unlikely that they will have a chance to do so, but they would have to break through to Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. The area outside of Bakhmut to the west, northwest, and southwest is obviously lower ground. If they were to take Bakhmut, they could technically burst through it more easily because it's much more difficult to defend. Bakhmut, however, can be easily supplied by the Ukrainian armed forces, even if it were to be further encircled. What is happening, and this is what our boys, and that includes pretty much everyone, including you, Huda and Chuck, have highlighted, is that the Ukrainians, for better or worse, are using Bakhmut in terms of attrition of the other party, just like they did, if you remember, Severodonetsk, where the Russians sacrificed anywhere between 5,000 and 6,500 men, or Lysychansk, where they then, as a follow-up, lost another 2. And that's a concept which the Ukrainians have employed properly in Bakhmut with tunnels and access routes, support corridors. It is working better even than at Severodonetsk. There is a possibility that at Bakhmut, given the fact that the southeastern part of the corridor and they left open for the Russians to bleed them through, that they can counterattack. We understand that the Ukrainian armed forces have moved rocket artillery further into the region, GLRMS system, as well as HIMARS. And they have started, as of yesterday and confirmed today by the Ukrainian armed forces as well as the defense ministry, they have started with airborne counterattacks, meaning that essentially they've used the Ukrainian Air Force to take hits on positions of the Russian forces. And one of the things which have been highlighted evidently in Russian narratives, very much elevated, is that as you would call it, sanatorium, and Lena, you know exactly what I mean, what that is, meaning essentially a hotel, hostel, whatever kind of environment next to a spa, has been hit where forces of Wagner, PMG have been taken down. And it seems that the Ukrainians know what they're doing. The advancing, the advance of the Russian forces will be shortcut by temperature falling and temperature dropping. It's highly likely that in the next 3 to 5 days, the temperatures will drop to a point that their winter garments, non-existent to an extent, their preparation for winter warfare, ludicrous, and their training for winter warfare, lackluster, will lead to significantly more than what has been reported in the last 72 hours, meaning hundreds of Russian soldiers falling prey to trench foot and to hypothermia and frostbite. If the temperatures drop by another 3 to 5 degrees, which is likely to be the case towards the end of the week, we may see thousands of Russian soldiers falling prey to that. And that's excellent. That's exactly what should happen.
Wow, thank you. I really appreciate that. And was there any developments on the border with Belarus? They seem to be still doing their dance back and forth, but nothing really of significance, right?
You just said it.
Okay,
Zip zilch.
that's good news. Thank you.
Yeah, you did hear that was hit around the city of Komovo, right? That was something that came in earlier this evening. It's another barracks.
That is great news. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Katie,
Mic check.
I can hear you good. Lima Charlie.
Good. Okay. The first, I just want to, Daryl. I hope you know that you are loved by everyone here, and don't think that people don't want to talk to you. Like for me, for example, I usually just listen during this time of day because it's in the middle of the night, and I sometimes fall asleep. So that's not always why I'm available, and I think it's like that for a lot of people in the European sphere. So just so you know, but I do have um, 2 questions, actually 3, but one of them is a stupid question for Axel, if he's still there.
Axel is going to sleep now, Katik.
Okay, it was a short one.
Shoot.
Okay, it's stupid, but does Scholz like football? Do you know?
Well, he was born in Osnabrück and raised there, so he should be a friend of the Bremer Brücke, which is the situation and the name of the stadium, and he should be a friend of the game as such. But I don't think that he really is. Whether he and his ilk have supported football, it doesn't really matter. I'm not quite sure what kind of sport he's a friend of.
Okay, because I was thinking about maybe to convince him or to make him see. Like it's a stupid thought, but I was thinking about it. That if he's a football fan, he might understand the reference so that he understands how people see it. Because in the Ghanaian parliament, there was a politician who uh, compared their economic minister with Maguire. So he called him an economic Maguire, and I thought that Scholz was an security Maguire. And if he likes football, he would understand that reference and maybe.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But the problem with I get it, Katik. The problem with Maguire is he's too tall, and Scholz is a dwarf, and that's the whole point. You would have to select a height impaired football player who doesn't really do well. That's rare.
True. But okay, so the military questions. So I've been thinking about it. One of the questions are, and I don't know who of you, Daryl or Axel. Oh, wait, Axel, you're going to sleep. So Daryl, you can answer this probably.
Good night.
Good night. So I was thinking about. I was talking about it with a domain like I think a couple of times because I was worried about it. So I'm from Sweden and it's really cold here, so we're used to icy roads, and I was worried about like the soldiers slipping if they don't see the ice, because on asphalt, if it's ice, you don't always see it. So I was thinking about like if we could send dobs or like things for the shoes, but then he said something about that they have special military shoes. So I was wondering, do these winter shoes have like built-in dobs on them, or do you have special military dobs that you have in your pocket for those kind of occasions? And also the other question, when you have during like a battle, when you're shooting, okay, so when like during this war in Ukraine, I know that a lot of the pilots have to fly really low, and I was wondering how the normal artillery affected, because they were discussing a couple of days ago like how HIMARS affect like the flight space, but I'm thinking about like the normal like Caesars and all those artillery, if there's like a big artillery gunfight, and how that affects like how the planes operate in that area? Sorry if it's a stupid question.
No, it's just not stupid. Because if you got close air support and you have artillery, uh, you don't want your plane to be uh, mistakenly hit by a round. I mean, it's not more likely, but you don't want to endanger the plane, uh, the aircraft, and the pilot. Okay, so typically what will happen is if you are going to have artillery coming in, you're going to delay that close air support. You're going to make sure that they're not in the area at the time. But they can time it. That's the thing. Your aircraft can stand off. They'll have a staging area, which means that they'll fly basically in circles in an area until the artillery is done, and then they will enter the battle space. That's typically how it's done. That way, you can coordinate your fires and your close air support.
Okay,
And
thank you. That's
then about yeah, and then about the tires and you're talking about studs on the shoes
yes.
for ice. Well, you got to think about this. They're in the fields. They are in trenches. They are on. Uh, there's not really the asphalt where it will build up that ice like you would on hard surfaces like that. They are in trenches and in bivouacs where it's more natural ground. And natural ground, unless you have a river or stream, you won't build up that kind of ice. It may be a little surface ice, on top of the snow where it's melted in the daytime with the sunlight. But then as it gets back to night and it freezes, you'll have like surface ice which just cracks underfoot.
Okay, because I was thinking like, what if they have to run over a road and between like two forests or something, and they're in a gunfight or something, and they might slip. But yeah, but I don't understand how the Russians do it with their planes, because they are flying low as well, and they are shooting artillery all the time.
Yeah, well, the Russians haven't been able to fly very many close air support flights. They have been limited because of the man pads. Every time they come in, they get shot down. They have not been using theirs. What they've been doing is using standoff munitions, rockets, and things that are like, so that they don't have to actually enter the airspace.
Okay, thank you so much. I was wondering about these questions, but I didn't find the time to come up, and so now is a good time. But thank you so much.
No worries. You agree?
Oh, hey, thanks. No, I just wanted to add, and if you did, Daryl, I apologize about the air deconfliction with other indirect support fires, right? Usually at some headquarters element, they will consider many different aspects. Weather consideration, types of ammunition, types of enemy that could present itself in that particular area of operations, and they would create certain corridors, right? They could create even like vertical ceilings, for example, because let's say they know HIMARS or indirect fires like artillery, certain calibers they fly at certain altitude, so maybe they could elevate if they do have some kind of air, right? They could bring it up even at the higher level, which is unlikely because of the air defense systems. But those are different considerations that are happening. Even small things like mortar units on the field, right? When they lob those mortar rounds, it is considered to be an indirect fire, and they do reach a certain height. So I assume professional militaries, the way Ukrainians are, because they've been trained by NATO standards for a long time, consider those things as well, right? A lot of times those low-flying fixed-wing airframes, they do have to do exactly that, fly very low to the ground, not only helicopters but also airplanes, in order to